TFT Set 8.5, which is the current set out now. I've enjoyed this set. Not as much as previous sets, but I think it's better than set 7 minimum. So please let me know down in the comments what you guys have been running, what champs you guys have enjoyed. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and check out all of my other TFT content and tier lists. Very much more to come. But let us get started. I think Acel definitely deserves an S tier. I think he is arguably the best threat in the game. That dude can definitely just do massive amount of damage. If he's not wiping the board, he's minimum getting everybody super, super low. I think he's definitely one of the best threats. And that's what I like about this set, is that it's sometimes hard to always splash in good champs to your team for, trait bots or to finish a trait. So having threats in this set has been, I've enjoyed it because I can just, okay, let's throw this person in, and that's who I can switch in and out. I think Annie, I'm going to give Annie an A tier. I think the biggest reason she deserves A is because of her 3 different traits. I think she's always been a good, low to mid tier cost tank. Very cost effective in my opinion. Annie's always pretty decent in herself and her ability, but I think having 3 traits as a 2 cost is also a nice step up. And I've enjoyed having her on my team a lot. Gnar, I think I have to give to A tier. Now, the reason I can't put him above or below is his traits. I think his ability is fantastic. Being able to hit multiple hexes and automatically do crit damage is awesome. Throw an Infinity Edge on him and he's swiping everybody to death pretty nicely, and he's not too hard to 3-star because no one really runs him because his traits are pretty shit. Prankster is pretty just hard to run in general. Echo's very good, Jinx is okay, but as an actual trait it's not that good at all. And then Gadgettine, while I really enjoy it and I think it can definitely give you a boost to your team, it's definitely not the greatest to run, and it's definitely low cost champions. We got Poppy, Lulu, Annie, then Gnar, and then Nunu. So it's pretty low. I mean, it makes up for the free item a little bit, but overall not so much. Lulu, I'm going to give to B. While I think and have seen a lot of people carry with her, I think she's just a little too inconsistent. Again, I don't think her traits are too good. Her ability is okay, definitely has high potential, but that's kind of just all it is high potential, not really guaranteed greatness, if you will. Let's see. Riven, honestly, I gotta put into S. Now, I have never been a huge fan of Riven, but she is always good, just like in this set. She's a nice 3 cost with 3 traits also, and her ability is good. There's nothing bad to say about her. She's just an overall solid champion, and you can always seem to find a way to splash her in because of her having 3 traits. Jhin, I gotta put in B. Honestly, I feel like Jhin is super overrated in this set. I think he's very hard to make work. For me, no matter how many items I've put on him, he doesn't one-shot virtually anybody. He does do a high amount of damage, especially with items, and if you have, 3 to 5 Renegade, but as a 4 cost, he just does not seem to carry as much. I think him having Renegade Riftwalker definitely hurts him. They're not that great of traits and definitely not that consistently usable. So I think that definitely drops him down aside of I just don't think that he's that great. Uh, I wish that he was better because I get him a lot, but that's also because nobody really runs him. Silas, I gotta put in C. I think he's one of the worst champs in this set. Um, unless you're really stacking him with items, which I don't know why you would. His ability is definitely lackluster, being a one cost, not that great. His traits are okay. Having Anima Squad, he's nice to get that going early if you can find 3 Anima Squad early, but aside from that, not too great. Rel, I'll put in B. I think her traits are good. I think her ability is good. But man, as a supposable tank, she is not it. She cannot tank for her life. I don't know how to make her tank any better. You can put all the items on her, and I swear it's just not enough. And it sucks worse too because a lot of Star Guardians are not upfront champs except her and Nyla. Which Nyla I will. Um, Honestly, I'll give Nyla the S as well. I think Nyla, both of her traits are good. I think she's definitely a champ you can always fit into either of those teams. And she's definitely going to hold her own, being able to heal in an area, much like Silas, but a lot better and do a lot more damage. And you can either throw damage items on her or tank items, and she's gonna be worth it. She's definitely, I don't have anything bad to say about her. She's definitely good. Who do we want to do next? Fiora. In this set, I don't know why, to me, she is super overrated and definitely not as good as she has felt in previous sets. I think she's definitely splashable, a trait bot if you will, but aside from that, I don't feel like she can carry at all. But she's not bad, she definitely does not deserve a higher tier than B from me. Viego. Honestly, I'll give Viego the S tier as well. Biggest reason why, while he is good, he also has 3 traits as a 4 cost, so he's definitely somebody you can always roll into and or make the carry, and he is a good carry. His ability is very good, especially if he kills somebody with it, then he's just going to use his ability again and again until he essentially doesn't kill somebody with it, but it's still going to do a shit ton of damage. So Viego's definitely a solid champ that you can always seem to splash into your team at any point in the game. Vi, I'll give to B. Again, biggest reason why 2 cost with 3 traits. You can throw her in. She's alright. She's nothing crazy at all. She's always just this very mid champ in every single set, and she definitely has stayed that. Renekton, I'll give to B. I think his traits are good, his ability is decent, and you can definitely make him a 1 cost carry, but that doesn't seem to always be very viable. And again, I definitely think there's some fall off because he is a 1 cost, but he's definitely not bad. He's definitely one of the better 1 costs in the game. He's definitely better than Wukong right here. Wukong, I think his traits really hurt him. His ability is definitely not too bad, but as a 1 cost with iffy traits in itself, he's not really worth looking into unless you're running specific stuff. Ramus as a 3 cost 3 cost threat, sorry. It's hard. I'll give him an A. I think the massive amount of disruption and CC he can do is worth an A, and because he is a threat, you can essentially splash him in whenever you want. And probably not. I haven't really ran him enough to try to get him 3-starred, but I would argue that most of the threats are not hard to 3-star, aside from 4 cost, obviously. But I don't have anything really bad to say about him. I think he does his job well. LeBlanc, man, they have just really been trying to nerf her and everything about her that surrounds her. I got to give her an A. I think they have just nerfed way too much about her traits and kind of her. I think she's definitely still a viable, solid carry, but admin, which is mostly Warwick's fault, is has been nerfed pretty heavily, and then we got hacker, which now you need all three of them to make the trait, so that's not that great. And then spell slinger is good, but you know it's if that's your only trait as a 3-cost 3 trait champ, it's not necessarily that amazing. While her ability is very, very solid, especially like with the Jeweled Gauntlet, she can definitely still kind of carry your team, but you really have to build the correct team around her at this point to make her work. Urgot, I'll give to A. I don't really think he is the best 5-cost carry. I would honestly give that to Fiddlesticks as the best threat 5-cost carry. But Urgot is still very, very good. Definitely a whole lot of CC and good amount of damage. I think Fiddlesticks is a fantastic threat to build your team around, having him just stay essentially up front and have him be targeted and then essentially disappear and do max damage. Especially if you have some items on him, he's definitely gonna destroy your team. And honestly, he can usually ult twice, so long as you don't smash through the team too quickly. So that's definitely great to have a 5-cost be able to ult twice. Leona, I'll give to A. I definitely don't think she's any higher than an A. Honestly, her traits definitely kind of hold her back. I think she's hard to work for and get. And then I think, honestly, she takes a decent amount of time to ult, and while her ult is devastating to that person, it's not as devastating as a 5-cost unit should be, in my opinion. I think she could definitely use a slight buff, but that's just me. I honestly, I try to run her a lot. I've ended up running Renegades multiple times and trying to make them work with Jhin and her and everything, and it just kind of doesn't. So I feel like she needs a little bit of buff, but she's still definitely not bad. Jax, always an S tier unit. I mean, Rageblade, Bloodthirster, and then whatever else item you want to put on him, he's pretty much going to carry your team, whether he has traits active or not. His Brawler trait, definitely the better one. The Mecha Prime one is iffy if you want to run that, and then definitely obviously boost him, then that's great. But if not, he's still going to do very, very solid for you and your team. Aatrox, I'm going to give to A. I think he's definitely one of the... I think all the threats are pretty good, honestly, and he's definitely still staying up there with that, with him mass healing with his ultimate, or ability, if you will, whichever. I think he's definitely very strong, and definitely a good frontline tank, and can definitely keep himself alive. As a 2-cost Sivir, she just is so lackluster to me. I feel like her ult definitely does not do enough. I feel like you have to have items on her and have her traits active for her to really do well. I've never felt like she was a viable carry for the Infinity team. But there is also just a lot of better choices as far as item users, like, you know, Lucian or like Twisted Fate. So that might just be kind of how I feel about it. So Lucian, 1-cost, 3 traits though, so that's definitely a solid choice, especially early game to get some stuff active, but not necessarily the best. Definitely the 3 traits carry him, but he's not that bad. His ability is decent. Now, Twisted Fate, though, 3 very, very solid traits to be able to splash in with Infinity Team, Duelist, and Spellslinger, and his ability is definitely devastating. Aside from if you had items on it, then it's even crazier. So it's definitely, he's definitely an S tier champ for sure to always be looking for, and pretty much always splashable in most teams. Shin, I'll give Shin to A. I think he deserves it. I think being a 3 cost 3 trait is good. I think his ability is definitely, while it doesn't really make him the tank so much, he's definitely a good utility unit in keeping your other I think it's highest damage unit alive. Whoever has done the most damage up to the point of his ult. So that's definitely good. And he does decent. I think you can definitely use him as a frontline carry, but he's definitely not gonna kill anybody. Definitely a solid 3 trait tank. Kale, if you're not running Duelist, you're really just not really even running Kale. I think she can do decent in the beginning, and I think she's definitely splashable getting the underground early, but aside from that, nothing really. I think Ashe is kind of the same as Kale, but I do think she's better, and I think her traits are better. So she's definitely a little bit higher, but still you can. I've seen a lot of possible Ashe carries if you run the right stuff. So viable, but there's still better choices and carries, in my opinion. Alistair. I'll give Alistair A, and it's solely because he has 3 traits as a 3 cost. But I think he's arguably the most splashable 3 trait champ that is not a threat. I think most teams end up having an Alistair, whether it's Oxforce or Splash In for Aegis, or even Splash In for Mascot. Usually Alistair is in at least half of the lobby's team, at least for part of the game. But he's definitely decent. His ability is alright, nothing crazy, but he deserves an A slot. Nico, I'll give to A as well. I think honestly, Star Guardians themselves are a little bit difficult to run again because they don't really have many tanks for this backline Nico to do great things. But her and her abilities are great, and her her traits are great. Her ability is also great. So there's definitely nothing bad to say about her. It's just I think the traits that she has makes it hard for her to be as successful as she could be as a 4 cost. So that definitely keeps her down, but her herself definitely worth the carry and worth the items for sure. Lux as a 1 cost, I definitely feel like she's pretty easy to 3-star, and she honestly does some pretty underrated heavy damage with magic. So definitely worth picking her up and running her with some Star Guardians or Spell Slingers, especially at least in the beginning of the game. Misfortune, definitely S tier. While her traits aren't necessarily the greatest, they're all still very good and splashable and viable, and her ultimate can definitely shred through pretty much every team. It's hard for her to consistently ult, like most you're going to see is 2 unless you got a whole lot of mana items on her, which you still kind of want. But she's definitely going to do a whole lot of damage for your team no matter what you're running with her, even if you're just running her as the ace splash trait bot, she's still going to do good things for you. Pyke, I got to put in B. Unfortunately, the biggest reason why is just because of his traits. they nerfed Hacker, and Riftwalker is definitely hard to be able to run because you need all three to make it work. So I still think he's good. I think his ability is decent, but because his traits are so bad and he's not that great, that I can't really put him higher than a B. He's definitely not a C, but I definitely feel like he's not an A either. Vex I will give to A, even though they nerfed her super hard. It might be a him actually, but anyway. Traits again, not too great, but his ability is definitely much more devastating to me than all the other Riftwalkers, and all the other mascots as well. So I definitely think that Vex at least was viable at some point. Not so much now, but you can still definitely, if you're running mascots, which is honestly not too bad, whole lot of tank items, with people like Alistair, Malphite here, who deserves an A tier, and then Vex in the back, and then whatever other mascot you want to run, then it's definitely good. Have these tanks let Vex do all the damage while they tank up front. But Malphite, honestly, while Malphite's traits are not that great, Malphite in himself is definitely, to me, a pretty underrated tank in this set, having his ultimate or ability, whichever one you want to call it, do pretty well in damage, but also the fact that when he does it, he gains armor for a few seconds. So he's definitely a tank worth placing some items on because he's pretty hard to kill in itself. Especially if you're running mascots, and honestly supers too, because that just makes him stronger. And because his traits aren't the greatest, he's definitely relatively easy to 3-star as a 2-cost, so definitely worth it. Poppy, I'll give to B. Traits are decent, especially early game, but as a 1-cost, she always falls off. But Poppy's always trying to carry whatever team she's in as her 1-cost defender self. But I like her ability. I think it's nice to throw something to the back line and then also shield herself. But nothing more than a 1-cost decent champ. Mordekaiser, I'll give to A. I definitely think he deserves an A slot minimum. I think the biggest thing is either you have to splash him in with just the ace, or you have to already be running laser core, which he's still always a very splashable 5-cost, and his ability definitely does a whole lot of damage. I just don't think that he deserves an S tier, but that's just me. Jinx I'll give to B as well. I think while her traits kind of suck, unless you're running Anima Squad, then you're really not using her at all, that her ability and damage output is definitely very, very viable to... It's hard to call her a carry or a possibility, but she can definitely minimum help that process. Lee Sin, I'm going to give to A. I think having 3 traits as a 2-cost is good in itself, and honestly, shielding himself and a teammate that's close to him is a great way to stay alive, and he does pretty decent damage, honestly, so I definitely think he deserves an A tier. He's definitely not an S tier unit, but because of his ability and all his traits, there's really nothing bad to say about him. He just definitely doesn't get that S tier bump, but minimum more than B. Draven, I'm going to put an A. I almost want to put him an S because he seems to always be one of those units, much like Jax or Warwick, that no matter what, they always seem to be pretty much an S tier champ. The only reason why he kind of isn't is because his trait, really, he just has the one, essentially. If you're not running Mecha Prime, then you're splashing him in with Ace. but just as the ace champ, I don't really feel like he can carry, not that well. So it's either run mechs and make him the primary carry, or just kind of not at all. But he's definitely a strong and viable carry with his ability and whatnot. Blitz. Blitz is just an early game trait bot. Nothing really good or bad to say about him. I don't think he is a C tier because he can definitely tank decently. And if you have the augment where he pulls people, that's pretty nice to use as well. But admin is worse and worse, and he's definitely just an early game splash brawler or admin champ. Gnosis, pretty much if you're not running Anima Squad, the only way you're running them is if you're running some sort of mascot like Vex-ish carry. He's not that bad, but he definitely doesn't deserve anything higher than a B, but I don't feel like he's bad enough to put lower. Camille definitely has just fallen off, and that's mostly again due to her traits. I think she's still very solid, and the disarm is awesome. Like, just her ability in itself, I want to put her in A, but her traits are pretty bad at this point, where you're really not running them, and that causes you to not run her. So that's just me. Syndra, I gotta put Syndra in B. I think as a 5 cost, she's one of the worst in this set. Same with Janna. I just think that you have to be running a specific comp to warrant splashing either of these two in, and even if you do, I feel like it's a whole lot of work to get these champs that I don't feel like are 5 cost carries. You know, there's definitely different 5 costs like Fiddle or Nunu, who I'm gonna give to, I gotta give him to S, honestly. That can definitely carry much better. Even Urgot or Leona, which I guess you can't really say Urgot because he's a threat, but Leona, at least she is much more splashable with traits than either of these two. Nunu, I think, while his traits are not the best, he's super hard to kill because he's so mobile, and he definitely does a shit ton of damage should he not be killed. So I think his overall ability and movement is massive for him, and then if you're running those traits, he's definitely worth the carry at that point. We'll make regular Ezreal B, and then his counterpart S. I think Ultimate Ezreal is definitely S tier worthy. I mean, 3 traits as a 5 cost, and his ability does a shit ton of damage, so he's definitely worth splashing in a lot and making him viable for sure. Belveth, definitely A. I know that they got a little bit of a nerf, but definitely still super viable, shit ton of damage, and honestly pretty hard to kill because so mobile. But definitely deserves an A. I'm going to put Sona up an A as well. 3 cost, 3 trait. The traits aren't the best, but she's definitely worth it. Her abilities definitely are pretty game changing, and she's definitely always worth the trait bot splash for sure. Vayne, I'm also going to put an A. I think both of her traits are viable. I think she always is pretty devastating as far as damage goes, doing true damage and physical damage all the time. So she's definitely good. I don't think it's hard to make her carry unless you really have a team around her. But she definitely deserves an A tier minimum. Kaisa. Honestly, I gotta put her in S. while her traits are a little difficult to build around her because of what they are, she is just devastating. She just is. There's really no way around it. Her attack and damage output is one of the highest in the game right now anyway, so she's definitely worth it. Yasuo, I gotta put an A. Two good traits, good amount of damage, very high damage ability, especially with items. Not too hard to 3-star. Nothing bad to say about him, but he definitely doesn't really get into that S tier. Morgana, I gotta put an A as well. I think she does a very high amount of damage and stopping power with her ability. Honestly, all the threats are very solid. She's definitely worth splashing in at any point, but that's also kind of why I can't put some of the threats up into S tier, or any of them actually, because, well, I guess Fiddle, but because they don't have really anything to run, which is definitely a pro and con, but she's definitely worth it to me. Samira, honestly, I have not been able to even remotely run her. I can't even say that I've had her on my team at all, but if I have, it's less than 3 times for sure. I think her traits just suck. While she is really good, and I think her ability is very good, it's, again, a 4 cost with 3 traits, and they all are pretty booty to try to run around her. So, definitely a lackluster 4 cost, in my opinion, this set. Pantheon, I'll give to B. I think he might deserve an A because his traits are good and his ability is good. And he's definitely a good tank. But aside from that, I'll give him the A. I'll give him the nod. Gangplank, I gotta put in C. Honestly, he's just bad. Yeah, I mean, if you're not running Duelist, then you're running some dumb super comp. But Echo definitely deserves an A. 3 trait, 4 cost. Pretty much always looking to splash him in with most teams, and he's definitely a solid unit with his ability and being able to tank actually. And then, honestly, I know one of these is a Warwick. I don't know which one, but we're going to go with this one as a Warwick, and he definitely deserves the S tier. He is so devastating, especially with items. He's got good traits. I'm pretty sure he's got 3 of them. Hacker, Brawler, Laser Core, I believe. Or Admin, not Hacker. But yeah, he's always an S tier unit pretty much, no matter what cost he is. And then honestly, I do not remember who the hell this is. It seems like a threat, but I might just be super dumb. Yeah, I don't even know. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think about TFT set 8.5, the mid set, what you guys think about my list, where you guys would put all of these champs, where you guys do and don't like about where I put them. Don't forget, like, subscribe, check out all my